Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer, and Cooney's here to say hello today too.
Yes.
Purr, can you hear her?
No, but I wish
She's
I
adorable.
Today we are chatting about the CCR we've been reading recently just for fun. So I had a hard time. I have 3, but I read way more than the 3 that made the list. It's been sort of the struggle bus for me lately for reading. I hope not for you guys, but it is what it is, right? Everybody goes through it every now and then. So
Yeah, I read more than the 2 that I have prepared to share as well. Some of them were for other episodes we're recording, and some were less memorable, shall we say? How's that?
It's very polite.
Whereas I was reading non-CCR books that don't count, so I have to make sure I read CCR.
There.
Well, I'm glad we have that anchor for you back into this world.
Yeah. I had quite a bit of non-CCR in there as well too. So yeah. All right, who wants to go first? Valerie,
if you've got 3, you should start, and we'll see if we get to your 3rd one.
All right, I'll go first. So the first one I read actually is totally Narelle's fault. And it's Autumn by the Sea by Melissa Tagg, because she kept talking about it. And we mentioned in a November episode, it came up again, and she mentioned that it was indie published, and I had sort of glanced at it and seen the price and moved on, and I didn't realize that it was in Kindle Unlimited. Now maybe she didn't put it in KU right away. Maybe she did. I don't know. I didn't pay obviously that much attention to it, but then I saw it was in KU, and I'm like, well done, sold. So
or borrowed anyway.
Borrowed, yes. So I did read that, and I read it in about a day and a half. It is fantastic. I would have liked more to the romance, but I understood why it couldn't be, because it's a very short time frame that she's there. So I mean, you're not going to get there. And I've also read book 2, which is, I'm not talking about that today, but it does continue. So like it's not cut off, like the story continues. So I really, really enjoyed Autumn by the Sea. I feel like Narelle has told you everything you need to know about it. So I'm just gonna give another little push to like go read it, because it's fantastic. It's really, really fantastic. Especially if you're a Northern Hemisphere person, this time of year is perfect, because it is like you can really feel the cold and crisp leaves and all of the fall things. If you're heading into summer, that's not going to help you very much, but unless you want fall. But
some parts of the Northern Hemisphere, perhaps we're into winter.
That's true. That's true.
Or not, depending on where you are.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. And now I'm grumpy because I'm caught up and book 3 isn't out for a while yet. I'm like, why did I do this? Now I have to wait.
Poor you.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah.
It'll be worth it. I'm waiting as well. I had to wait for book 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Valerie, what's your first one?
I'm going to go with Emily Conrad. Surprise, surprise.
Not really.
To Believe in You is the 4th and final boohoo book in her Rhythms of Redemption series about a band, Awestruck. You may have noticed that I've enjoyed this entire series. The band has 3 guys in it, and this is book 4, so I was kind of like, how's she going to do that? Well, in book 1, Matt is fired from Awestruck because of addiction problems, and he went on his merry way, thumbing his nose at them and the whole entire world for a while. And then he came to his senses through things that we don't need to discuss in this moment. But he's been clean now for a couple of years. And the Awestruck band manager has been watching him from afar. Now, he starts to lure him back with the fact that they've got a music program for kids who might not be able to afford music lessons and stuff. So they're looking for a bass player who can teach. And so they lure him back with that. And actually they send the band's social media manager, Lena, out to talk to him. And she's really annoyed with him because he made her work so much harder when he got fired. And she had some issues of her own. Her fiance dumped her, and she sees some of the same patterns in Matt. And so there's a whole lot of stuff, but that's who the romance develops between the two of them, as they both feel a little on the outside of things at Awestruck. Even though she's a social media manager, sometimes she finds things out kind of after the fact, and she's kind of annoyed by that. Anyway, I really, really enjoyed the series, the whole series. I also read the novella that comes between books 1 and 2 recently. I put it off because it was a Christmas one, and that was dumb. You should read it in order, even if it is Christmas, because I was like, what happened there? What was John doing? You know, like, just read them in order. Just do it. And I'm really looking forward to her new series. So that is my first book recommendation for today.
I've read the first in that series and I liked it a lot. But Emily's books are right on the edge of my ability to handle in angst level.
Yes.
They're very high angst level books. So I have to have
3, I think is the highest.
Oh wow, worse than 1? More than 1?
I think so.
1 almost killed me.
2 was very different. In that, I mean, in 2 we have a female mechanic and we have the drummer, and so the issues were quite a lot different. But book 3 was an addiction issue again, which was more in the moment, whereas Matt's in book 4 is, I mean, he still has an occasional struggle, but he's not like trying to claw his way out of the depths of it during the story, which is kind of the case in book 3.
Okay.
Which wouldn't normally be my pick. I wouldn't say, oh, give me all the addiction stories. No, not at all. And yet I really, really enjoyed this series.
They're so well written. Book 1 was fantastic. I just know that I need to be in the right headspace to be able to handle that.
I can appreciate that.
My life has enough drama in it right now. Like, I don't need to, I'm not reading for drama right now. That is not.
You don't need to borrow someone else's,
Yes.
Some fictional person, furthermore.
My own. I don't need any more.
I'll pick up the novella.
Okay.
Before you read book 2.
Yes.
And while you still remember book 1, and that'll help bridge the gap for you.
Excellent. Good tip. Hear that, Narelle? Read them in order.
Well, I'm going to make you all laugh. You are all going to, I'm just going to switch the order. Are we up to me talking about a book?
We are. Yeah.
All right.
I'm
You're going to
scared,
laugh.
though.
Here's book 7 in a series, and she hasn't read any of the others yet.
No, I've just changed the order. I have 2 to talk about today. And of course, the one of the ones I'm talking about is Emily Conrad's novella, An Awesome Christmas Melody. And I have not read books 1, 2, 3, or 4. I went straight to the novella.
Oh, all right. How did that work for you?
I really enjoyed it. So it was obvious that there were things that had happened that I didn't really know about, but that was okay because it was, it reminded me a bit of Melody Carlson's A Christmas Quilt, where you've got a number of characters with a number of different things happening. And basically the novella was all about, they're in Chicago, they need to get up to, where are we? Northern Wisconsin for Christmas. There's a blizzard. And Adeline, who's the heroine in book 1, and Gannon was the hero, it's Adeline's up in Wisconsin, so they're trying to get back together, and things have happened, so everything's not necessarily hunky-dory between those two, which I thought was interesting because often readers will say, I want to know what happens after the happily ever after, and sometimes things aren't necessarily straightforward after that happily ever after, and that relates to being in a musician in a band that travels and you're just not in the same place as the person you love. So there was some issues going on there. And then Philip was probably one of the more central characters in this one. He's a single father. His young children have been looked after by his father and stepmom. And it was all a lot about them going home for Christmas and he taking on a more proactive role as a parent.
Right. And he's the hero of book 3.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, so I actually really enjoyed the novella. It was light, it wasn't heavy, it wasn't angsty at all. So
I'm impressed that it made sense without having read book one. So that's great. Good job, Emily.
It did make sense. And it was like a little introduction into the series. And so it hooked me in. So I actually am planning to go back, and I will read in order from book one.
Yay.
And find out what happened with Gannon and Adeline. I mean, that's the thing with romance, is we know that they end up together. There's no spoiler when it's
that's
CCR.
not a spoiler. Yeah, the hero and heroine
go back,
get together. That's never a spoiler.
Yeah. But for me, if there's a blizzard and there's snow and it's a white Christmas, being the Aussie that bakes in the sun on Christmas Day, I'm always attracted to white Christmas stories at this time of year. So I really enjoyed that one.
Cool.
Excellent. My next one is Faith in the Hero by Jessie Gussman. And that is, I think, the first in the third season of Freedom Ridge. I think it was the first one of this year's Freedom Ridge Heroes of Freedom Ridge. I liked it a lot. It is sort of a mail order bride feel. I know, right? And she runs a daycare, and in another place, not in Colorado, and there's a big catastrophe. I'm trying to remember if it was a fire or a flood, but whatever it is, her whole building is like wiped out, and turns out that her landlord did not have insurance. So she's busted. Her whole life was in this, like, starting her own daycare, and this was going to be her future. And so she goes online looking for a job, basically as a nanny, and applies to several of them, only gets this one interview at a ranch outside of Freedom, Colorado. So she goes there and interviews, except for as she gets there, the night before she arrives, the hero has a lot of kids. It's like 4 or 6 kids, all under the age of 10, probably under the age of like 7. There's a lot of young kids. And the mom just decided she was done being a mom and walked out. And she just sort of disappeared off the face of the earth. So he's really struggling to keep this together. And so to cheer them up, they go watch the animal auctions, and the little girl spills a drink in his lap right as they're auctioning like a whole herd of goats that go together as herd. So he stands up out of his seat, and so he bought himself a herd of goats. So the nanny shows up for this interview while they have this brand new herd of goats in the barn, like chasing them around, and they're trying to figure out how to milk them because they all need milking. And so it's this chaos. And so it's a very amusing start. Obviously she ends up taking the job. So it's
first clue.
Yeah. It's really cute. I will say it had less Freedom Ridge in it than I wanted. She does stroll through the town after she like sort of leaves in a hurry after seeing the chaos with the goats. So you get a tiny little mention of some of your places in Freedom Ridge that you want to go back to. And then the rest of it really is all, it could be anywhere. But it's still a really, really adorable story. And if you like cowboy books, I would think that this would even scratch your sort of need a cowboy at Christmas kind of itch, because he is on a ranch. He is not a cowboy. He's sort of an accidental goat herder, but he does like software stuff. So he's nerdy, but he does have a ranch with animals and cute little kids. And what more do you want at Christmas, right?
A nanny, apparently.
A nanny, yeah.
Yes.
So it was cute.
All right.
Valerie.
Well, my next one is also a Jessie Gussman, but it isn't that one. I read Heartland Joy, which is a different take on a modern marriage of convenience story. So Bridget is the mother of 3 daughters. Her 2 husbands previous have passed away on her farm, both of them, as has her brother and her father. So the town's, this is going back over, I don't know, 8 or 10 years altogether, maybe, but 3 relatively recently. And so the townspeople are saying that either she's cursed or the farm is cursed, or probably both. Right. I mean, of course, right?
Right.
So Sean is the son of Bridget's father's good friend. Like their dads were friends.
Okay.
Okay.
And so his dad says to him, you've just sold your farm here in wherever it was. And I have a friend, whose daughter really needs help. Could you go and help her out for a while? And so he's like, well, whatever, whatever you say, Dad, because that's what all boys do. So he goes and he literally runs into her in the grocery store parking lot first. And that went moderately well. But then he found out that she is who he was there to help. And then he was like a little more taken aback. But as he's praying about it, because he is a strong believer, as is his father, he just really feels that he needs to marry her and stay alive so that people can see that the curse isn't real, that God is in control, not some silly curse or whatever. So he goes out to her place the next morning and proposes to her. And she says yes, because she really needs help on the farm. And she just plans to not get attached to him. And then it won't hurt so much when he dies because of the curse. Anyway,
and would he be husband number 3 then?
He would be husband number 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
She has 3 daughters. 2 are like, I don't know, 10 and 12. And then there's one that's quite a bit younger from her second husband. So that's why I say like one died quite a while ago. And then the other 3 deaths, her husband and father. The father was the most recent. Anyways, there's been a lot of dying going on in the background. And Sean is just like determined that his only job is to stay alive and prove, that it's not true. Okay. So, I mean, you'd think it would be easy not to get attached to this, hunky guy who like seems to read your mind and know what to do on the farm before you ask him and all that good stuff, because he's your perfect hero, but he does have his little quirks too. So I enjoyed it for the most part. It's the first in a new series. I don't know if it's a new series. I didn't actually check the date. A series. So Heartland Joy by Jessie Gussman. Oh, and it does take place across Christmas. So there's that too.
See, there you go.
It's not a Christmas story per se, but
and he doesn't die. Just like to be
not in the story.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. He's still alive at the end.
We
don't know.
Right.
Maybe
otherwise it's not a CCR if he dies.
Right,
he has to live. The hero and the heroine have to live on the last page, or it's not a CCR.
That's fair.
No, maybe Jessie knew that rule.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It seems as though she did.
Yeah, good. Phew.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Narelle, what you got?
Well, my next one is Merry Xmas by Courtney Walsh. Mm-hmm. So this one, it's more sweet clean than CCR. So I probably should qualify that before I go any further. And it has some sort of faith, sort of churchy mentions in it, probably more to do with the heroine's mother. But if you're looking for a CCR that has a faith thread in it, this is not the book that you're looking for, if that makes sense. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And what I really enjoyed about it is I can get frustrated with Sweet Clean if the characters are behaving like they're Christians, but they're not explicitly Christians, because people who don't have a reason to behave in a certain moral way don't. So I can get very frustrated with Sweet Clean if I feel like they really are Christian, but when you're not being told that, if that makes sense by the way they behave. To me, that's just not real life in 2022 in Australia. So that's a bit of a Narelle quirk in terms of what I like. And what I really liked about this one is the characters were real, and it's complete, nothing in the story happens that's inappropriate or anything like that. But if you do like general market romance, then you'll like this one, and particularly if you like rom-coms, because rom-com humor often goes into that place that CCR can't go as well. So you have a little bit of that. So it might be a little bit edgy for some Christian readers, but if you are happy reading sweet, clean romance, then you'll be there and enjoy it. So the setup, yeah.
When you say it goes into, is it sexual humor? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it does push that a little bit. I think there could be readers that could find things a little bit, only, I don't know, it depends on how sensitive you are. Like it didn't bother me in the slightest, but it might bother people who are a bit more sensitive to those things as well. Yeah.
I just figure we got to go ahead and call out what exactly it is, so that in case people are like, because there are a lot of areas I could think where CCR maybe wouldn't go. So I was like,
okay, well, I mean, there's nothing inappropriate in terms of physical touching. There's no closed door anything, but there is a bit of he's attractive, I'm attractive, that sort of humor that can go along with no shirts on, all that type of stuff. So to me, that's just that sort of flirty stuff. And I know some readers or even don't really like much more than a peck on the cheek with a kiss in a book. If you're that type of reader, this isn't your book, if that makes sense. But there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't break any rules per se. Yes. But it can be hard to explain sweet clean sometimes, can't it?
Yeah.
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 And the definitions aren't clear.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And so particularly when authors write both under the same name, I think it can get a bit confusing. Yeah. All right. So let's get back to the story. So Maren is a TV journalist who lives in Denver in Colorado, and she really wants a top hosting job on the network, wants to be one of the anchors. And she's competing with this other lady for this particular job. And she needs to come up with something brilliant to impress the producer. So her and her producer, who works with her, because she does like segments, she's one of those people that will do like the live segment somewhere, as opposed to being in the chair in the studio. And so her producer gets the bright idea that we'll go home to Maren's family for Christmas, because Maren talks about what Christmas has been like in her family and how her mother's the queen of Christmas. So off we go to small town Pleasant Valley in Illinois. We go home. Now, the thing is, Maren hasn't been home for Christmas for 8 years. And this is where if you like Courtney Walsh's sort of second chances, childhood issues, you'll really enjoy this one, because it tends to follow what I call trademark Courtney Walsh types of stories. And so what's happened is years ago, the hero in the story, his name is Max Weber. Now, and this is another reason I picked it up, because Max Weber is actually a well-known historical figure. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so he's actually an economist and a historian and a sociologist, German sociologist from the 19th century. He was the one that actually wrote The Protestant Work Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. So he's known as being one of the founding fathers of capitalism and Western society. I did economic history at uni, so I did an essay on his work, one of my history subjects. So to me, I'm like, I know who this guy is. Oh, is this intentional, or is this an accident of his name? And I've assumed it's an accident, because I couldn't see anything that made him look like an economist or a historian or German or anything like that. So anyway, I digress. It's funny the things you notice, isn't it, with names?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Max, his parents 8 years ago died in a very tragic car accident, and he really went off the rails. And this was when Maren was finishing she was a senior at college. They've been together since for years, and he basically tells her, I don't love you, and breaks up with her. But he really does, but he's just does not cope with losing his parents, because they'd grown up together, they'd lived next door, their mothers were best friends, and had always planned for them to get married. And Maren does have another brother as well, but it was Max and Maren were destined to be together. The mothers had ordained it. They were in love, and everything fell apart.
Oh, mothers.
Yes. And so she goes back to town, and she turns up, and they've got the TV cameras ready for her to do the big introduction. Mum, Dad, I'm home. The front door gets opened, and it's Max who opens the front door, because he's been going home to her parents for Christmas and no one had told her. She hasn't been there, but he's been there. So this is the setup for this story, and it is hilarious.
Yeah, super
awkward. Yeah, so there's lots of funny moments, lots of feels in this one, lots of romance, and I really enjoyed it. It was really good. And and I think it was probably, even though it doesn't have that faith element, it's very much Courtney Walsh in terms of those really deep emotional issues and dealing with rejection, dealing with forgiveness. Can I let go? Holding grudges over stuff that's happened. And the characters really got put through the ringer emotionally in terms of having to being forced to unpack what happened in the past and why it happened. And yeah, so she's around town filming different things, and he gets caught up in all her filming, which goes on social media, and there's all this other stuff that happens. But it's a really fun Christmas story, and I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Why don't we stop there? I haven't read that one. I keep seeing it, like it's everywhere on Instagram. So I probably will cave. Is it in KU? Do you know?
I can't remember because I don't read KU.
Okay.
It might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about it and then I don't, and then I get caught up in like real life drama and then I don't think about it again. And then I see it all over Instagram and I'm like, I need to read that. And then I don't. And so, yeah, it's on my list to get to.
But it's definitely lighter. It's more like her Christmas book, A Cross Country Christmas, in terms of, yeah. So even though it has some heavier stuff going on, it's a really light, easy, fun story to read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But more sweet, clean, not so much with faith this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the characters, there's a few mentions. I mean, obviously with Christmas, you can throw in a few Christian mentions and different things, but it's more her mother has gone to church, but the main characters don't have a faith arc or anything like that in the story. Yeah.
All right. You just had 2, right, Valerie?
Yeah, that's it. Good for me.
All right. Well, we would love to know what you've been reading. Leave us a note in the comments, or if you've read any of these, tell us what you thought of them. And if you're there on YouTube leaving a comment, you can hit that notification bell and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And you can also leave comments on our Facebook page. But, you know, the YouTube channel is the happening place right now. So, yeah, we will look forward to finding. We're not going to find you. We're going to see you again next week. And you can find information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And in the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.